Every SharePoint workflow step can have one or more actions and one or more conditions. Conditions determine whether an action should take place or not. For example, if we were calculating a payroll, we might want to know whether to use a calculation for overtime. So we'd look for the condition, are the total hours greater than 40? Or if we've had someone check a particular box that says they're going to provide us with some other information, we might only want to include that other information if we saw that the box was checked. So conditions come in different flavors, just like actions do. There are some conditions that are very specific to a context. These are the conditions that are generally available and are available here in this particular list. So first, if any value equals value. This is very generic and allows us to compare any two things. We could compare a value from a column in a SharePoint list to some static text like a number or date. We can compare two text strings to each other. We can compare information that we've calculated and stored in a variable. And when I choose if any value equals value, one of the things you'll find is it includes equals and not equals. And when we look at values, we have a wide range of places to pull things from. So we can use the workflow lookup that we used before. We can also say if current item field equals value. So imagine now we're in a library or list and we're looking at this particular item. What does the field in that item equal? And once again, when I choose this, it's not just equals, it also includes not equals as a choice. So more specific, the condition if current item field equals value is a more limited version of if any value equals value. Other conditions are that this item was created by a specific person or in a particular date span. This item was modified by a specific person or modified in a specific date span. Person is a valid SharePoint user. You might wonder, what's that even about? Well, it's possible for you to have folks on your team who aren't necessarily SharePoint users. So if you had external partners participating in a project, someone might go in and say, well, I'm going to assign the review for this project to Joe, and they would type in Joe's email address. But we want to make sure that we can send something to Joe so Joe can get back to the SharePoint site. So this is a way to check and say, if this person is a valid SharePoint user, fine. We'll go ahead and send the review request to Joe. But if they're not a valid SharePoint user, we're going to send an email back to the person who made this decision and say, you can't send it to Joe. Joe's actually not on our SharePoint domain. And finally, the other condition that you can use is you can say that the title field contains specific keywords. And if you choose that, you'll take a look and you'll actually enter the kinds of keywords that you're looking for. So you'll type in that you would be looking for project, for example, or any other particular word that you wanted to use. Notice that as I add conditions, SharePoint assumes that I want all of them to be true. So it joins them with the phrase and. If I have two different phrases and either of them would be good enough, either of these conditions, then I would click on the and to change that to or. This is a toggle field, and or. If I want to simply delete one of these conditions, I delete them. And this is a time that I might want to be really good at moving things up. It might be true that I want the first one condition to be before another, and so I can just rearrange them using move. So I put conditions in place, and then I can say, well, given these conditions, if these conditions are true, then let's go ahead and add some actions. So by combining them together in one step, SharePoint will make sure that the conditions are true, and if so, we'll turn around and we'll email these users, or we'll wait for a particular period of time, or we'll change the value in a field, and so on. Conditions and actions combine together to create powerful steps in your workflow.